What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I am Luke Embers. So I don't know if you've been keeping up with my social media or not, but I was out of town for about a week. I went to Hawaii with my girlfriend and I am really tired and I am extremely jet lagged. And I realized, you know what? I am going to keep this one super chill. So in honor of being back and getting ready for shows and gigs for the year, I figured today would be the perfect time to burn some business cards. Now, I made a video about this a long time ago. This was probably one of my first videos, but a little added design I do when giving out my business cards is I actually burn part of the ends to give that extra dramatic effect, if you will, to people and clients that I meet. And I actually have a networking event tomorrow, so I need to get prepared. So this will be a chill video. We're just gonna be burning some cards and talking stories. So sit back, relax, and let's burn some business cards. There we go. I got my little fire pit right outside. So yeah, again, I mentioned that I did this in the past before, and what I usually do is I'll just char the ends of it. So let it burn a little bit. It's a little bit windy out too, so it may be a little hard to get that burn. You'll actually see some embers develop on the side of the cards, which exactly goes well with my information. And I'll just tap it to get the ashes off. And you'll see that I have a nice perfect burn on the side, and I'll probably do usually 2 sides for these just so that they're pretty symmetrical. It's cool because you also get some of the residue, some of the ash on the rest of the card too, so it adds an extra visual to it. So yeah, that's pretty much the process, and I'll do this for all of these cards. So I think I have like 100 cards here. So again, now's the perfect time. It's nice out, it's sunny out, and it's a good way to stay warm in the winter. So on these cards, I have my information, contact information, and then I'll also have a QR code. So I got Luke Embers, Fire Knife Dancer. I have my my business phone number right there, my email, and then I have my website, Luke Embers, my social media handle, which is @LukeEmbers for pretty much everything. And then I have a QR code here that people can scan just out of convenience too. This little logo I have in the middle, my sister actually made that for my birthday. I have my main logo here with the embers with the circle ring around it. I wanted something that was also more subtle and smaller, just so that I could use as like a secondary logo for my website, for my social media stuff, and something that was just kind of cool and homemade too, because this main logo that I had here was something that I just made right off the bat when I first started this whole business. And I think it's really cool and it sticks. But my sister is also a graphic designer too, so she has expertise in making logos and stuff. And I figured it'd be cool to give her a shot to see what she could come up with for me, and she did not disappoint. So shout out to my sister Maya for making that cool logo that I put on my business cards too. So this is, yeah, again, just a super slow process, but it's nice again to just like take a moment to do this. And I try to do them all by hand. Again, just that uniqueness to it, and that every card has a unique design based on the burn that it creates. So look at that. And then you just let it burn. That's the fun part. But you also got to make sure that you get all the embers out, because just like my motto, what remains, these embers can remain for a bit, and if you don't watch them, they'll continue to burn the card. So you got to make sure that you don't overdo it. And the material for these cards are recycled paper. I don't know the thickness really, but it's recycled. I want to do my part to sustainability, but also it's easier to burn and stuff too. You know what? I'm actually also going to take off these gloves because I'm going to freaking stain them with so much ash. So I mentioned that I just came back from Hawaii, and it was actually my first time out there. Primarily it was more of just vacation and kind of cultural immersion. We were going to a bunch of different places, like the Bishop Museum, which is kind of like the field museum, but for Hawaii. And it just talks about the history. They share and teach a lot about the gods, the mythology kind of stories, ways of life, how they lived, like when it comes to fishing and gathering, hunting and gathering, and the lead up towards the annexation of Hawaii to the United States and how it became a state. So it was really interesting because Hawaii was a kingdom at first led by King Kamehameha I, who unified the islands together, and then over time there are different generations and each one slowly became more modernized, and a lot of it was just how Hawaii connected with the rest of the world. And that especially led to King Kalakaua, he was the last king of Hawaii. He was the one that started to really make great connections with the rest of the world, with different governments. And I mean, other kings and rulers did that. He was the one that was the most modern and I guess had the most impact. But yeah, so from the Bishop Museum, we explored around, did some pretty crazy sightseeing. We did a couple hikes, and actually one of the hikes was really cool because one of the hikes that we did was called Nu'uanupali, which is a very famous lookout point. And I actually learned a hula from my Polynesian Dance Academy where I learned how to fire dance an ancient style of hula called the kahiko, which tells a story about King Kamehameha I, his journey to unifying the Hawaiian Islands. In that particular story, there was one battle at Nu'uanupali, which ultimately guaranteed the unification of the kingdom because King Kamehameha was coming from the Eastern Islands. He went around the west and the east side and pushed the native soldiers south up into the mountains into a valley, and at the very top of the cliff cornered them and pushed them off, and they all fell to their death, and that ultimately unified the kingdom together. We climbed up to Nu'uanupali and I did the dance exactly where the story is dedicated, and imagine just what those soldiers had to go through, not just war but climbing up the very cliff while battling, and this is going on for hours. So I'm sure they're exhausted, they're tired, they're hungry, and they all just end up falling to their death. So very unique experience in connecting that storytelling aspect to history, right? So yeah, that was a great experience. And then in addition to that, we went to the Polynesian Cultural Center, which is an enclosed area that has different villages of different Polynesian islands. They had Hawaii, they had Tahiti, they had Samoa, they had Fiji, they had Aotearoa, which is New Zealand, and then they had Tonga. It was a really cool experience because we got to learn more about the different cultures and their differences. And we bought a package where we got a tour of the islands through canoe. We got a group tour, so we had a private tour. The tour guide, his name is Nam, and he is actually a fire knife dancer as well. So it was really cool to connect with him on that, and he's from Vietnam. At the very end, there was a luau that we stayed for, which was really cool. It was all Hawaiian, it was a buffet, we got to eat, we got to hang out, get a couple drinks, and then after that, there was an evening show called Ha, which is the Breath of Life, and it's a full-on production show hosted by different dancers and the organization behind the Polynesian Cultural Center. Did a whole story that traveled throughout each of the villages, and at the very end there was a huge fire dancing spectacle with like 15 different fire dancers. So it was really cool to experience because the venue is actually the place where the World Fire Knife Championship is held every year in May. So it was cool to also get a glimpse of what it's like to be there in person physically, because I definitely burned this one too much. But yeah, it was cool to experience what that was like and to manifest that I am going to be there one day, hopefully. And then another cool thing was, if you remember, last year I made a vlog about a workshop I went to in Colorado. It was a workshop featuring Mikaele Oloa, with a 5-time world champion fire knife dancer. And he runs a fire knife school called Maugamu in Oahu. And so what I actually did was I reached out to him and I asked if I could take a drop-in class with him. He said it was totally cool, so I dropped in and I got to do a class with him on the North Shore of Hawaii, which is really sick. It was cool to catch up with him and to get a little bit of one-on-one time with him. He gave me a lot of tips and pointers on performing when it comes to training. So what he told me was, first and foremost, really focus on differentiating your planes. And what he means is, versus combining different moves that have different planes, such as doing the helicopter or the overhead spin to Vilili Malua to the front spin, he said to really focus on doing moves that cover the same plane and not repeating many of them. So a lot of dancers during competition will repeat a lot of moves. And for judging, the best thing to do is to not repeat moves and to show as much variety as you can. And he likes to call it cut the fluff, because you want to cut off the fluff from the thing you're trimming, like the heads you're trimming. So cutting off all the excess that doesn't need to be there, the extra stuff. So that was one big tip. And then to keep that plane, because when you're able to maintain a certain plane, you can spin faster and it's more flowy versus having to cut in between different planes, because it takes time to transition in between those. I can go between different planes, but make sure that I'm done with that plane or done with that set of moves before I move on, just so that it's cleaner. And again, you can tell that there's more flow and you can gain more speed from it. The drills that we did were actually really interesting, because what we did first was we did a couple of laps, you know, just like conditioning, and then they actually took us on a hill with a sand hill. And what we had to do was we had to like run down, run back up, and then we had to spin down, spin back up. And then there was another point where we were actually tumbling down the hill, because I don't really do this personally, but if you see fire knife performances, and it's actually pretty common, but a lot of fire knife dancers will do a flip onto the ground and spin with their head on the ground, but with their back up. And then they'll do some spinning with that. Usually they'll do it with their doubles, but that drill or that exercise that we did, we were drilling down the hill. So we would do 2 rolls and then land in that position, and we would spin, and then we would roll to the side and roll to the side. So very unique type of training that I didn't actually anticipate at all. But it goes to show that, you know, just taking classes, getting a different perspective on things can help improve your training. And it was actually pretty crazy, because it was a pretty diverse range of ages there, but all of them are, I'm pretty sure, under 18. Maybe 1 or 2 were like 20 or 21, but I was definitely the oldest one there. And I'll tell you, the younger kids could do some insane stuff. And it's crazy to think how they're training them so early, and imagine how they are during the competition. If that's the only thing they're training, they're gonna be absolute beasts when they're on the stage, or even when they're older too. So just goes to show that I'm not just competing with the older guys, but I'm competing with the younger guys too. Even though I'm still technically pretty young, I guess I'm pretty old for their standards. So the reason why I didn't make a video on it specifically, or didn't bring my GoPro or didn't record, was because I wanted to live more into the moment. And as much as I want to get content and capture the experience and share with you guys, I also don't want to ruin the experience for myself. Because when you're constantly putting a camera in your face into all the experiences you do, you don't actually live it in the moment as well. And with this being my first time in Hawaii, I wanted to know what it was really like, and to not feel like I have to work the entire time or focus on content, and if I don't get it, then it's like I won't have another chance for a while. It was for me, and I wanted to enjoy it, but also just out of respect, like I'm not gonna record their class, because I know it's private, it's a private session. They're competitors, so they want to keep what they're doing under wraps too. That's why I'm here telling you guys while I'm burning fire. I also realized that my training regime has not been very structured, and it's with good reason. It's not just because I'm lazy. I'm just doing a lot of different things, and it takes up a lot of time, and I gotta focus on other things like getting shows and gigs and making content, right? So balance of things. But my goal in the near future, is to really improve my training regime, and to have something that's a little bit more structured for myself, and then I can also pass it on to people who want to learn as well. But it was a really cool experience, and I'll probably record the next time I'm there, just because I can dedicate more time to that, and I already know. Okay, well, I've gotten through about half of these, but here, check them out. They were pretty cool. You got so many different designs. You got different ones with different smudges and different ends that are burned. Some are darker than others. So pretty cool. But again, I gotta be careful, because like this one, for example, some of my information is covered because of the ash. So gotta make sure that it doesn't get too ruined. But yeah, I'm probably gonna take a break because my hands are freezing right now. But I hope you enjoyed sitting down with me and doing something a little bit fun, burning some cards and just talking story. So I'll do the rest of these guys later. But until then, just remember, view what remains, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.